Hi everyone, good afternoon or good evening or good morning for our invited from today, Alicia Giron. Let's start this fourth lecture from our FinGeo Virtual Seminars 2022 series. I welcome you all on behalf of the FinGeo network. Please visit our website, and for those who are not members of the network yet, I would kindly ask you to register on the website. It's a very short form and it is free. And you'll be updated on topics, articles, events, and inspiring lectures like this one Professor Alicia Giron will give us today. My name is Fabio Contel. I work in the Department of Geography from the University of São Paulo here in Brazil. I'm very glad to briefly introduce our speaker, Professor Alicia Giron. She's director of the University Program of Asian and African Studies since 2017 and coordinator of the Asian Studies Seminar. She is also a researcher in the Institute for Economic Research, and she has her academic formation related to the Latin American studies from the School of Political and Social Sciences from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, the so-called UNAM. Her main interests, research interests are financial economics, particularly those related to business cycles, financial crisis, sovereign debt, and financial systems in general. Alicia will give us her lecture entitled Geographies of Chinese Financial Flows on Africa. I take this opportunity to kindly thank her again for being here with us in this morning or this afternoon, and thanking you all too. As we did in other seminars, Alicia will have something around 30 minutes to make her speech, and then we will open to the public. You have two ways to ask questions or make comments. The first is simply by typing the question into the chat, indicating with the letter key, or simply ask the question live by raising your virtual hand. Please don't forget to turn off your mic. And without further ado, thanks again, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Alicia. And please, Alicia, the floor is yours. I will send you a message in 5 minutes before the ending of the 30 minutes. Thank you very much.
Well, as Fabio said, good morning, Latin America in the north part of the hemisphere, and good afternoon and good night for some, and maybe some are very early in the morning of the next day. Well, for me, I am very happy to be here, and it's an honor to be invited to this net, because one of my principal aims of my research is financial issues. And I am going to talk about the geography of Chinese financial flows in Africa. But let me tell you that I had been trying to find, even in a theoretical way, what is going in China. So first of all, I'm going to share my, my screen. Okay, well, how do I divide the work? Well, I'm going to give you an introduction, then I am going to talk about China and the cooperation with the African Union and the Agenda 2063, then all the disbursements and payment of foreign debt in Africa. Then I am trying to have a theoretical approach to understand Chinese conglomerates in their global expansion. And I divided this expansion in 3 stages. And then I'm going to show the main Chinese conglomerate and their expansion in Africa. Well, I'm just, when I was trying to make this paper, I was thinking in Polanyi. In his book, he talked about the high finance and how the high finance of these big conglomerates, not only industrial, commercial, but also financial, are expanding their investment in Africa, in Latin America, and the Caribbean, and also in the Southeast Asia and Central Asia. For example, through banks, I cite $500 million have been granted and distributed in the Asia Pacific region at 51%. Sub-Saharan Africa, 18%, Latin America, 16%, Eurasia, 11%, and in other countries are about 4% during 2008 and 2019. Entonces, the objective of this share is to delve into the investment of Chinese corporations in Africa, like a process of silent integration with the economic accumulation model in China. So on the one hand, the lack of financing for achieving autonomous development by Africa states forces them to depend on capital flows from China. And on the other hand, the need for natural resources to satisfy the Belt and Road Initiative development project, which requires the expansion of its economic and political influence through a close relation between China's bank and companies and creating a geoeconomic and geopolitical reconfiguration at the global level. The hypothesis that will be demonstrated through the veil of economic development will be high finance, led by shareholders and stakeholders of large financial corporations in a deregulated market, developed by Polanyi in his book, The Great Transformation, and regardless of the fact that the companies and banks that provide investment financing to recipient countries are state-owned or private. So there is a close relations, and this is very important, between the Chinese banks and the state-owned and private companies transformed into large corporations that invites us to a deeper analysis of categories, so as financial capital, state monopoly capital, and money manager capitalism. So what is the methodology that I am using? Well, I try to solve the question posed in this chapter, and the questions, let me see, is are we facing a new expansion of Chinese financial capital, or if it is a South-South cooperation? What is behind South-South cooperation and who is in the lead? What is the role of China in what refers to economic aid? And who are the winners of the Silk Road? What is the role of loans and investment of Chinese company in Africa? Where will be the close relations between Africa countries and China be challenged? Well, so the second point is to see the multilateralism cooperation between Chinese and the different institutions in Africa. And I am quoting here because here in Xi Jinping said that multilateralism is the way to build a basic architecture for China to promote balance and joint growth of the world economy. I think that here is a mistake. It is 2001. It must be 2021, when he has been talking about the multilateralism as a speech in front of Trump. You must remember that when arrives the Trump administration, he didn't want to know anything about multilateralism. He went out of the TPP. He renews the free trade agreement with the North American countries. And also he has been, so in that, Xi Jinping, in all the forums, and also in 2 years ago in the Forum of Economic Davos, he also speak of the multilateralism. And this is, and he is always to explain that globalization is the best way to have development. So that's why it is very important to see how China has been influenced in, for example, in the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank was created in the mark of the 2063 agenda of the African Union. And also the banks that are working with financing this African Development is the Asian Investment Bank, and that are very interrelated with the Belt Road Initiative. Also, they have a forum on China-Africa cooperation, FOCAC, and they adopted some resolutions. One is the Dakar Action Plan. Then the other one is the China-African Cooperation Vision, the Sino-African Declaration on Climate Change, and the Declaration of 8 FOCAC Ministers of Conference. There has been 10 cooperation plans and 8 initiatives adopted at the 2015 FOCAC Summit in Johannesburg. And in 2018 Summit in Beijing, they have enhanced economic and trade cooperation between China and Africa. So this is very important to see how China is not only giving, he's not working with their banks because other entrepreneurs, they are working with that whole package. So the data, and this is from Xinhua, the newspaper, it says that data shows China's help to African countries by building over 13,000 kilometers of roads and railways and over 80 large-scale power facilities, and finance over 130 medical facilities, 45 sports facilities, and more than 170 schools. It also trained more than 160,000 people in Africa and built several flagship projects, including the African Union Conference Center between 2000 and 2020. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, China canceled the outstanding debts of 15 African countries in the form of interest-free loans due at the end of 2020. So the key of this paragraph is this one: China's help to African countries. Also, the financial relation established between the People's Bank of China, and this is, for me, it is very important, because through currency exchange agreement with the Central Bank of South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, and Nigeria, it is transcendental. The signing of a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in financial supervision with 7 African countries, including Egypt, South Africa, and Nigeria, laid a solid foundation for a stable and long-term bilateral financial cooperation. China's relation with the African Development Bank, the Eastern and Southern African Trade and Development Bank, the West African Development Bank, and other multilateral development financial institutions. China's commitment is aid totaling 996 million to the African Development Fund under the African Development Bank. So there's a very close integration, a financial integration between the Central Bank of China, the People's Bank of China, and the Central Bank of the African countries. And the Multilateral Development Organization has made it possible to seal bilateral agreements so that Chinese companies and banks fully enter developing infrastructure projects with advantage over other European companies and Americans. So this is just a chart to see how has the capital flows to Sahara. You have the portfolio flows, foreign directed, and here is the remittance. If you see, well, the remittance are very important for Africa, and they're very important for other countries, not only in Africa, also in Latin America. But here you can see the official development assistance and how and the foreign direct investment. So there's another thing that it is very important, and is the disbursement and payment of foreign debt. There are many studies regarding the external debt of African countries, even sub-Saharan African external debt, and the debts contracted with North Africa had been separated. Still, external debt has been a serious problem when facing debt service payments, especially since Africa is a commodities region whose prices in the international market are very unstable. So we have credits as Paris Club, the World Bank, the IMF, who has been participation in renegotiation of the African debt, and also cancellations and reduction of interest on foreign debt during a long history, subject to stabilization plans and structural reforms implemented under the advice of the IMF renegotiation practice from the 80s. Given the impact of confinements, so after the COVID and the development of the pandemic, the debt service suspension initiative was presented and agreed upon at the annual meeting of the G20 in 2021. So here you can see the disbursements from China to during the last 14 years. I took the growth rate because there are some years that they have increased a lot, some it is less. But if you see China is, if we see the disbursements, is more or less and more or less the same as the World Bank. And there are other multiple lenders also. And here's the IMF. All that we wonder, well, as you know, the IMF has been very important, not only for Africa, but also for the underdeveloped countries, and especially with Latin America. So when those are payments that must be paid one day, maybe in next year, maybe in 20 years, but you have to pay those payments. So here is the African, the creditors of the African governments. So you have the private sector, excluding the Chinese private sector. The China is 19.9%, and the World Bank is 50.5%. So there are other multilateral and the Paris Club. So that's only to see who are the creditors of the African governments. And this is very important because this is the lend holders of the 15 African governments over indebted. So the risk is enormous to these countries, and that 24.11% are in China hands. The others is in 22.62 private sector, and then you have the World Bank. But this is very important because we have to ask if China will continue be a lender for African governments when these countries are at risk, or what are the rules to pay this debt. So this is how you have this is just a chart, how it has increased the Chinese public and private sectors to African governments. And well, you have also to see by countries, because here exactly in 2016, a very high debt was, there was a very high disbursement to Angola. So you have to make a more deep study of how is this chart. Well, then I will try to see what's the theoretical to understand China's conglomerates in the global expansion. Well, here is the Hilferding definition. I think it is very important, and also the work of Baran and Sweezy of Monopoly Stand and Minsky in the book Stabilization on a Stable Hand. So, Hilferding, I think, is the base. More, even it is he's seeing the expansion of capitalism between the 19th and the 20th centuries. I think it is a very important category to understand what's going on China. Also, one of the things that it is very important, the work of Baran and Sweezy in the about the book is Monopoly's Capital, and also to understand Minsky when he talked about the money manager capitalism. On the one hand, because these categories are very important to answer the question if China a capitalist a country, or it is a socialist, or it is a Chinese socialist country. Well, whatever it is, we have to work with this category. Now, when and why we have a consolidation of the Chinese conglomerate, and I divide it in 3 stages. The first stage is the Deng Xiaoping reforms after the Cultural Revolution. Deng Xiaoping deregulate the economy, and they created a banking system very, very strong, and also the big bank, which is the People Bank of China. So, oh, sorry, the camera. And then, okay. And then, what else? Also, and the second stage is after this deregulation and this economic and the big banks and the big corporations, so they began an internationalization and integration of production chains at the global level, and it covers a period between China's entry into the World Trade Organization and the Great International Financial Crisis between 2001 and 2009. And the third stage, it involves the post-crisis period. This is very important because while all the rest of the countries around the world began with austerity programs, they began in a fortification of the internal market, and also they planned the Silk Road or the Belt and Road Initiative, who permits the consolidation of the investment of large companies and the Chinese banks globally. And that's why we talk about the multipolar world, but headed by Xi Jinping. Well, which is the principal conglomerates? Well, for me, the transformation of China during the last 70 years, it is very important because one of the key or the pillar of the economic development is that they have a very close relation with the central bank and the public entrepreneurs, and also we have private entrepreneurs. And the process of the China's accumulation process need a lot of new how to say instruments, a new transformation, and that's why this Belt Road Initiative is all around the world, trying to have minerals, trying to have food, and trying to have also energy. Let's go, and well, I don't know if this you can see it. It is very with very few, they're very little, but I only will say this is this information is from data of the Boston University of Global Development Center of Boston University, where they have all the Chinese companies and the Chinese banks where they are. And I am just put here the 10 principal, the main Chinese builders in sub-Sahara Africa. For example, you have the China Railway Construction and the China Communications Construction, China National Machinery Industry, Power Construction Corporations, Sino Hydro, this is a private, China State Construction Engineering, China Railway Engineering, China Energy Engineering, Sinams, and China International Truth and Investment. And then here I have another, which is also the investors. As you see, we have the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. And for example, I didn't say, but for example, this they have financed between 2015 and 2020, $5,600 million to South Africa. The China National Petroleum, they have in Niger for energy. China Petroleum and Chemical, they are in Cameroon, Sao Tome, Botswana, South Africa, and Nigeria. Aluminium Corporation, it's in Guinea, China National Offshore Oil in Nigeria, China Molybdenum, Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Exim Bank, Democratic Republic of the Congo, China Real Guinea, and China General Nuclear Power in Namibia, and FinGeo Energy in Sierra Leone. As you see, they are energy, they are metals, no, and they are real estate. I will go again to the last before, because here you can see all, for example, the China Railroad Connection, that it is in Djibouti, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Angola, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal. And they have investments between 2007 and 2021, 33,710. So if we can read each company, they are all around Africa, but the same companies are also around Latin America. So here is, and we are just trying to finish. Oh, I can see. Well, this is the Chinese investment in Latin America. For example, in Brazil, it's enormous. It's incredible. $63,700 million in Peru, Chile, Argentina, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, Guyana. Then you see in Africa, not all the countries, but most of them, they have investment there. And now we have to think, why do they invest so too much in Nigeria or in Angola? Then if you have a better analysis, it's most of them is oil and energy and the minerals. And those minerals are useful for their new economy, digital economy, and all the climate and weather transformation economy. So then, for example, this is also, well, also we have in Venezuela, they are divided, no, by sector. Let me go to this one, and for example, this is the top Chinese investor in sub-Saharan Africa. I think I repeat this one. I have already listen. Maybe I think we have already seen this one. But if you see, they also have like subsidiaries. For example, China National Petroleum Corporation. It's also PetroChina and its many affiliates. Kunha Energy, China Petroleum Engineering and Construction, formerly China Petroleum Pipeline. So the thing is that we want to demonstrate, and well, this research is in process, it isn't finished, is to demonstrate the big corporation related with a big bank in China. And then this is the principal investors in Latin America. As you see, they also have the China Petroleum and Chemical, no, with affiliates like Unipec, ADAX, Songjuan Petroleum Exploration, CGG COC, Shanghai Petrochemical, and this is energy. And they have in Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador. Of course, Mexico, they don't have too much investment, the Chinese investment. And that's why Trump wanted to change the Telecan, now UMSCA in English, or TEMEC in Spanish, because they see how China is penetrating the North American countries, but especially in Mexico. And for example, here you have the China Three Gorgos. So they have the affiliates is China Janssen Power, China International Water and Electricity, YNW, Luz del Sur, and then they are in Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Peru. So what else? This is the...
Alicia, we reached 30 minutes. If you could please.
Okay, well, I will finish. And I will finish and I have stopped the share, because I think the thing is that we must have a reflection of what is this process of China through their big companies, and which category we have to choose to explain all this concentration of capital and the internationalization process of China. With me, that it's all of the one that I want to share with you. As I told you, is a research in process. It isn't finished, and I don't know when I will finish that research, because every time you find more interesting things. Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you, Alicia, for your very, very interesting explanation from these investments from China in Africa. I have one question, but I will give the word to our colleagues that raised their hands. So please, now I cannot see them. So I will start. Someone want to make a question? Some of you raised your hands, or
Karen has a question.
Please, Manuel, help us.
No, I was saying Karen has a question. She typed it in the chat.
Karen, oh, Karen, please.
No problem. Thank you, Fabio. Thanks, Manuel, as well. And thank you, Alicia, for a really expansive overview of Chinese investments, not only in Africa, but also in Latin America as well. I guess maybe to ask you to give a little bit more comparative observations. I understand that this is, you're kind of embarking on this research, but based on a lot of data that you've already been collecting about the kind of state-owned companies and Chinese state-led investments in Africa as well as in Latin America. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, do you see particular comparative kind of differences in terms of how these state-owned companies are operating in Latin America versus in Africa, whether it's in terms of, because you say they both involve, a lot of it is in energy and metals sectors, but is there any kind of differences? What about reception or the kinds of local governments or local companies that they that they cooperate with or engage with? I just wonder whether you could tease out some of these initial observations between what's going on in Africa and in Latin America.
Yes,
it's a very broad question.
Well, Karen, I will answer immediately. I haven't made a. I am beginning because I am focused only in Africa, and then I decided to expand just for the conversation for you to have all these charts. But the problem is that why do we accept that Chinese investment in Africa and in Latin America? And in my first charts, I said that we don't have money to have investment. But why we don't have money? All that the Washington Consensus has been implemented in Africa and in Latin America and in all the rest of the countries around the world, except China. And some like Korea, East Asia, Korea, Japan, and some other countries. But in the rest, we have been. So the problem is that now we are in the trap of the debt. We have to pay the debt. And the austerity programs of the International Monetary Fund don't give you, how to say, respirar. They don't give you, to have or to choose or to make another type of investment. Because the other problem is that entrepreneur class, it is very weak. It isn't a strong entrepreneur class to have a national development. Behind all these deregulation and liberalization in economy and in financial also sector, you need the money. You need to give employment. That's why, is it a corporation? Because you have to pay, or what we know through the newspapers, especially the Occidental newspapers like Wall Street, but especially Wall Street, they talk about the people don't like the Chinese inside, because most of the when arrives the Chinese investment arrives with all the people, and they don't give employment to the local people. But I haven't been there. I haven't made the research in camp. So I know, and I can tell you what I have read. And this, maybe if I will have to make, I have to go to those countries and make a little research, but in camp, no? Because sometimes the newspapers that we read, well, there was only 2 weeks ago, there was, I think it was in Islamabad, they put a bomb to 3 people of the Confucian Center. I think it was in Islamabad or in Pakistan, something like that. And there have problems. Then the problem is the cultural and social problem, but the governments need the investment. So this is the way we need. Argentina has just signed 1 or 2 months ago when the president was with Xi Jinping, and they signed the agreement that Argentina is going to participate in the Belt Road Initiative. And Chile is participating, and Peru. Mexico, no. Why? Because we are the borders of USA. You just can't have an autonomous policy. We have 6 years ago, yes, it was 6 years ago, I remember, we were going to have a train between Mexico City and Querétaro, and there was a problem of the news, whatever, and they stopped the investment that they have already done, and the Mexican government has to pay to the Chinese company what they have invested for that train. So I think we have to we have to separate what is the role of China investing in these countries, also the soft power that China used through the Confucian Center. And well, and when they invite you, and when they invite the governments of Latin America and Africa to China, to Beijing or Shanghai, well, they are a splendid hostess. So it is very interesting, but I haven't seen you. I think that I hope if I finish this research, because that research, I want to see how the company, for example, the railway, Chinese railway, what are they doing? And there are a lot of papers that most of that in Tanzania and Kenya, most of the trains are because they are going to where are the minerals, and they need to bring them to the ports. Well, but I read papers. I haven't gone there, and sorry.
What's really interesting will be to what extent the bargaining or negotiation is able to take place or not, right? With what kinds of stakeholders and so on. So, looking forward to further outcomes when you get on with the research. I think there are more questions now coming from the chat. I'll get to Fabio.
Oh,
yeah. Thank you, Karen, for your question. So I will give the floor to the audience. So Tobias, could you please say your question?
Yes.
It says Karachi. Yes, it was in Karachi.
Yeah, I just had that in the back of my head somewhere, so I put it out there. Thanks for the presentation. As you mentioned, the debt trap several times during the presentation. I was wondering, you had a slide where you had this Xinhua website quote about debt jubilees or something of that sort in 2020 during the first peak of the Corona crash. And I was wondering, how much do we know, like 2 years later, about how many cancellations actually took place, or how some of these long-term loans were renegotiated? Because you find plenty of rather contradictory evidence online, and I was wondering if you know a little bit more about that. I'm probably thinking along the same kind of comparative lines like Karen just did. You get anecdotal evidence here and there, but in the bigger picture, has there been behavior that very much differed from, say, creditors like the IMF or anything similar? Thanks so much.
Now there's I just forget. There's a person who is in Belgium who has all those information. I just can't tell. Well, that's, as I said, I read the papers, but if you read Xinhua, you are going to see a positive information. But when you read the other papers, is that they didn't cancel everything. The problem, how do they negotiate with a Chinese? Maybe you don't pay, but you pay with minerals, or you pay with food or whatever. You don't have to pay with money. The most interesting thing is what I found is that how they are trying to work the PBOC bank with the central banks, as Morocco and Egypt and the others that I mentioned, because they are not using the SWIFT, they are not using the dollars, and they are using renminbi, the Chinese money. This is very interesting. That China they don't work as in Latin America or maybe African governments in a short, in corto plazo, in a short, no. They see more in medium and in the long time. So for us, it is very difficult to understand that. Maybe you can lose today, but you know that you are going to win in 10, 20, or 50 years. So they see more the future than that in the short time. So I don't know, Tobias, if I answered you, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. So the next question is from Ying Shu. Please, Ying.
Thank you, Alicia. It's quite illustrative presentation, and I think the data is quite rich. You have mentioned that there is cooperation between the PBOC and the Central Bank of the Africa countries. And you also mentioned about the Minsky's theory of unstable economy. I'm so fascinated by this kind of relation connected. And so you just now you have stated that something like currency settlement and a swipe are implemented by the RMB and the dollar, and that is something, you know, to something related to the internationalization of the RMB, right? So can you tell us more about central banks and Minsky's financial instability ontology, how cities of China and cities of Africa in investing Africa do differ than, you know, the lender of last resort as the fundamental function of a central bank?
Well, I'm going to, I think it was 7 years ago, I make a paper, and then I can share with you, I will send to Fabio that paper. I make a paper about shadow Chinese financial system. And the thing that I have found there is that in China, they have had financial crisis, but they never had sell or sold their banks. They have the lender of last resort. And this is very important. This is very important. And even right now, if you see, for example, the evergreen problem that they have with their, I'd say, carteras vencidas, non-profit loans, just in September, everybody thought in the newspaper that they were going to have a Lehman Brothers crisis. No, they never. China will never have a crisis as we have had, because the bank, not only that, they have a big government. And this is very important to save their own companies, even to close them, but to save their own companies. Because, for example, if they have bankrupt Evergreen, you know that all the building sector is 25% of the GDP. This is incredible. You just can't close, because then what are you going to do with those people? In China, one of the things that for me is a lesson is that they have the they have an employment of last resort. The central bank is employment of last resort. And this is, you see to the lens of the post-Keynesian nations, you are going to see that they have a very close relation, and the People Bank of China works as lender of last resort. So this Evergreen, they are going to fix, but it's not going to bankrupt. Maybe I will be wrong, maybe tomorrow, but that's my appreciation. And also with the big banks, they have a lot of non-profit loans, and they clean them, but they never sell. In Latin America, for the banking crisis, we sell all our banks, and now we have the Spanish banks in home, and we are paying a lot of services, and they have a lot of profits from Latin America, but not from Spain.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, Jean, for the question. And we have another question from the public. Please, Mohammed, could you make your question to Alicia? And Karen, thanks for sharing the text from Alicia here in our chat. Karen just put the one text from Alicia. Please, Mohammed.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for interesting presentation of Alicia. Dear, thanks for good presentation. My question, due to heavy investment of Chinese companies and state, how Chinese company manage their risk in Africa, especially with climate change? Please explain for me. Thanks.
Can you repeat me the question? Just, you want the climate change or what?
Some risks, such as climate change. Yeah.
Okay.
Risk. How Chinese company manage the risk in the African countries?
I haven't studied that. But there's a huge in the press. There is a huge talking that the Chinese company don't respect the climate change.
Thanks.
I don't know. As I told you, I haven't been there to see if it is true or not. But it says that China don't respect the climate change rules in most of their companies. You have to understand. I have been in China at least 10 times, and you see how people work. They have other culture. They don't have a sindicato, a union. They don't say, I am going to only work 8 hours. They have other. That's why it's they have such development so quick. It's another culture. So we have to understand that these Chinese companies, but in another way, no, and also how they function in China, inside China, no. If you are, I just can see in Brazil or in Mexico when a Chinese company, and then, no, I don't want to work today because it is Mother's Day. Today is Mother's Day in Mexico. I would like to see how many people are working. No, you see, it's like, it's a culture. So we can't, we have to differentiate those. The only thing that I can say, and with this will be my hypothesis, is that China has a big government and a big bank, and that's how you can understand that China, after COVID, never have a GDP, a negative GDP. All the countries have it, but not China. And they are trying. The situation right now is very complicated, and they are trying to give employment to the people. I don't know how they are going to do it. I have just make a work just a few days ago that I presented in the LASA, in the Latin American Sociological Association, about Afghanistan. Last year, when we present the abstracts, Afghanistan was very important, and we want to see what happened between Afghanistan and Latin America. Of course, that's now you have to put Ukraine. But what you have seen, while I was trying to see which companies are in Afghanistan, there are only 3 big companies, but all around the frontier, the Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan, and they have 3 countries. They have the same companies that I show you. They have there, and they are trying to working in minerals and in oil. So they have a long vision to have oil, energy, minerals for their own accumulation process. And this is very important. And the other thing is how the employment and how they have increased the development between 2009 and 2019. They increase not the GDP, but they increase the human, how to say ¿cómo se llama? El human, well, they are better. The society is better than ours. While the rest of the countries, we were in austerity. So when COVID arrives, your health system didn't work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed, for your question. Alicia, can I ask you something about your talk? In fact, I'm trying to understand the nature of this kind of dependency that is being created between African countries and China. Some good authors here in Brazil have said that this is not a dependency relationship in traditional terms as we have known here in Latin America for decades or centuries, but rather some kind of a win-win relationship by the simple fact that China has not the intention of dominating the world. Or is this too naive? Or is there some kind of new dependency that it's not so aggressive as the dependency that we knew here in the Latin American countries? Did you read something like this, or it is too naive?
Fabio, they are my friends. Maybe we are talking about the same people. They are my friends because I am in the Chinese group of Claxo, and they love, you know, I don't remember their names. They are Brazilian, and even one of them has made a book about the Chinese socialism. And of course, I think they have another vision. Maybe it's different because maybe you are not going to pay with dollars, but you are going to pay with soya, no? And then now with all this problem, you have to go to the Amazon, take out a lot of trees to have more soya and more corn and more wheat to send to China and all around. I think I don't agree. They are my friends. I respect them a lot, but for me, it's the same. That's why how you can explain is money managerial capitalism or financial capital as Hilford in, or monopolist capital. So in this three, with these three definition, I think I have to find one because Hilford is Martian, no, and money manager capitalist is the same, but it is a post-Keynesian concept. But for me, it is the same, maybe different forms of exchange, but you have to pay that. Because even, because most, for example, Evergreen, I didn't know that BlackRock is in Evergreen, they have actions. So we don't know how many in China Petroleum Company, maybe they also have shareholders. The problem is that how we can find all this information. And the problem is that, well, I don't know Chinese, because maybe in China, there must be a lot of publications of that. So you have to read the information that you have. And sometimes those information, it is very, well, you know, they want you to repeat what they want. So Xinhua said something and the Wall Street said other things. So I respect them, Fabio. I am in that group, but
you don't believe in this
no,
thesis?
Of course not.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alicia. I believe we have no more questions in our chat, and also our time is running out. So I think we can close the session. Manuel, if I forgot something, we need to announce the next. We will
Exactly.
have
It's the only thing I
weeks.
wanted to say, Fabio. One more.
Please.
Yeah, we have another lecture in 2 weeks. Then we have Emma Maudsley and Sarah Hughes. So please register on FinGeo.net if you're interested in that lecture. You can check it out there, of course, a little bit more about the topic. And I hope to see you all in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And hopefully I have a
Manuel.
computer then with a camera, so I can actually, you can also see me.
Can we have a picture of all so I can put it in my face? But they have to but I don't know if it is possible to open their cameras.
I will ask the audience if you could please turn your camera on.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation, and
thank you, Alicia. We thank you.
And okay, I'm
on
going
behalf
to
of FinGeo, excuse me.
You can always put it in gallery view, and then we see everyone.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you again, Alicia, for doing this very, very interesting presentation. Karen, want to say something? No, you raised your hand? No, okay, it's an applause. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, everyone that joined us in this session. I hope to see you in 2 weeks again in the last session from this semester of FinGeo seminars. And so take care and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud
Thanks,
to
Alicia.
be here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Bye.